Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Living Electric. We have a lot of exciting topics to talk about today. Lots of industry news, a lot of car unveilings, some charging infrastructure unveilings, and so forth. So, pretty excited to get into this.
Yeah, I think the major one, as we're kind of, I feel like we've started every episode the past few weeks with like a Tesla charging update, but there's been kind of another one with Tesla kind of officially announcing their first V4 supercharger stalls, if you will. So kind of the new supercharger design. So those are out there now. We might paste a picture in there if I can add it during editing. But it looks very similar to like the urban superchargers if you visited those. Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit bigger. So really not a major difference on the power side. It looks like it is potentially capable of higher output charging. But somebody tweeted out some pictures of the actual site, and like the cabinet and all the electrical equipment on there is not going to be able to charge any faster than the normal kind of V3 speeds. So it seems to be, at least right now, V4 is just, a different design that may have better capabilities with non-Tesla vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of like my first impression too, like after looking at those photos that were tweeted, and we can post the account, in our show notes to that. Yeah. But I think the most impressive thing was just the fact that the cable was longer.
Yeah.
Which is going to help for more than just Tesla vehicles.
Right.
So I think that's where I'm excited to see these V4 stalls popping up here in the United States, especially as they start opening up the network to other, non-Tesla vehicles. Yeah. The only thing that ran across my mind is with the Magic Dock, you have that, the CCS adapter, the green CCS adapter, but it's still connected to the same cable, whereas when I was looking at the design of the V4 stall, there's really no place for a mounting point for that adapter. So I'm not sure if they're going to have two cables or how they're going to do something like that. Right. I think two cables would make it look ugly, to be honest. I think from an aesthetic point.
Yeah, and we've seen them do that before with the normal superchargers in Europe, before they started putting the... is it Europe or Korea or something? Somewhere they have some superchargers have two cables, and I agree, it doesn't look great.
No.
But we haven't seen pictures of the inside of it. I'm wondering if they can just further embed it inside the charger.
Oh,
so it's kind of it just slides up in there, and that would also help protect it more too. But yeah, because the cable's kind of on the outside now versus being tucked up underneath there. So, but yeah. Do you like the new design, or I've seen some people be very have strong opinions about how it looks, and I'm I feel like it's still much better looking than most chargers out there. So
yeah, I personally like it. I think it looks much cleaner than the existing supercharger, for V2 and V3 superchargers. Right. I look at those and I'm okay, those have been in the ground for almost 10 years, and it's they're a little outdated looking, so I like the new design. The only thing I don't really care for is how small the word Tesla is on it. I kind of wish that it was a bit bigger and more in your face. That way, if it was utilized for stall status, if something's broken, if a car's charging, you could see it easier from across a parking lot.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it looks super sleek. I think they did a really good job on it. And my favorite thing too is that it says made in Buffalo, New York. I love seeing that badging on that, especially, in Norway, so it's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. They tweeted about, the official Tesla Twitter account tweeted about the V4, saying, our first site is open in the Netherlands. And then, I think not even 12 hours later, they tweeted about their Buffalo supercharger facility, right? Mm-hmm. And how they are building superchargers there. And it's all the old versions of the superchargers. So I'm are they still building the old ones? It looks like they are still going to deploy those in some cases. So I don't know when they're going to start, completely switch over to this V4 stall. But we'll see.
Yeah, there's rumors that there's V4 superchargers coming to Toledo as part of a permit that that I believe Marco SP, I believe that's his Twitter name. I know it's Marco.
Yeah.
And he's like incredible with finding like
it's
supercharger
wild.
permits. It's crazy. Like I love seeing all the stuff he digs into.
Right.
But like I believe he found a permit for V4 stalls for Toledo, Ohio.
Nice.
And it kind of makes sense, like if they're only limited at 250 kilowatts like V3 superchargers are, then get them installed and then up the power output whenever the Cybertruck gets out there and some of these other vehicles. But yeah. So I don't know. It's exciting. I was actually thinking of how much we've talked about Tesla recently on our podcast. So
it's like I don't know if it's just because they are making, like, they're being more vocal about the small little changes they're making and like kind of saying, hey, this is official, versus people just like digging into things. It's been exciting for me. I've almost been kind of like rejuvenated that like Tesla is making these announcements and like on the like outside of everything else they're doing, like kind of concrete changes or updates. So
definitely
it's been exciting.
I know. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about, my job with ChargeWay's monitoring the supercharger network and just seeing how many new ones come online. Like literally from yesterday till this morning, 7 new stations came online. And like I saw it this morning, I was like, holy crap, that's a lot of new chargers. And then when I signed off for the day, 2 more had gone online. It's nuts.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's good. Wild. I mean, we need the infrastructure, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But switching gears, I guess, to a different OEM, let's talk about Kia real quick, because I think the EV9 really made a big splash online with the new SUV they're releasing. I know you're pretty excited about that one. So
I haven't posted anything about that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hate it. It's the worst looking car. Would never drive it.
I would never want a boxy electric SUV. I feel like I've said that at least 30 times on our podcast. So that's at least half the episodes I've mentioned that. The Kia EV9, I knew from like the spy shots and like the camouflage prototypes, it was going to look very similar to what the concept was that was unveiled back in, I think, 2021. I think it was the EV9 concept.
Okay.
And the fact that Kia kept it almost identical to the concept, kudos to Kia. I'm just blown away that they created such a beautiful vehicle.
Yeah. I've been a huge fan of just Kia's whole rebranding. I know their logo specifically has been kind of like, I don't know, not controversial, but like people have had some thoughts on it because it kind of looks like, it looks like KN. But I think just as a brand, I've really liked their new car designs. Like they've clearly like flipped the switch to say, hey, we're making more modern looking cars. We're making them, more streamlined, more angular, like look a little bit more sporty. And I'm a big fan of like most of the looks of their new vehicles. I really like the EV9. Like they definitely are headed on the right track here because I think people are gonna, notice that. And I've said in previous episodes too, I'm glad we're at the point when we're releasing EVs that look futuristic and aren't trying to look eco-friendly.
Yes.
Because that's where a lot of EVs were at some point, because they're like, oh yeah, like the environmentalists, the like eco-conscious people are the ones that want EVs. And like I think we're realizing a lot of people want EVs. They just want them to look like regular cars.
Yes.
Like, just make them normal looking. Like
Yeah, no, I agree with you. When it comes to the looks, I feel like Kia's doing a good job making it look like the future of transportation without making it look forced. Like I was actually talking to a friend about this the other day when the EV9 was unveiled. When you think of cars like, like the ID4 and like the Volkswagen ID3, and this is not a hit at Volkswagen, those vehicles don't look anything like their lineup because they're trying to be the future of, their design language.
Right.
And it works, but it kind of seems like they tried a little too hard, and you can say that for so many different manufacturers. But yeah, I'm really excited about the EV9. I know it's not going to be the most affordable electric vehicle, but a 3-row SUV compared to something like a Yukon or like a, like a Suburban, like it's going to be in a good price point. I have a feeling Kia's going to sell a lot.
Yeah, and if you look at the competition too, what other 3-row SUVs are out there? You've got like the Model X maybe, which is like a 3-row. That's, $100K plus. You've got the Rivian R1S, which is, I think that starts at like 90 plus, right? Like that gets up there.
I think in the 80s.
80s,
Like,
okay.
Yeah, but still it's expensive.
Yeah.
Don't forget the Model Y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could fit. Yeah. People can fit back there. That's not an unfair statement to say. Yeah, but there's like not many others that I think have the space that the Kia is going to have. Obviously, I haven't seen it in person yet, but I think they're on the right track for having a true, large SUV. So
for sure. Yeah, it's essentially an electric Telluride. So if you're familiar with that size, that's exactly how big it's going to be. It's going to be a good size EV.
Right. So we'll see. Yeah. Did they release any range numbers or specs or anything like that, or was it just like this is our new SUV?
Yeah, that was essentially it. I mean, we can expect like the 800 volt battery architecture,
right?
Charging speeds and optimal conditions in under 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming probably the top trim is going to have over 300 miles of range, but right. There's rumors it's going to start at about, I think, 52 or 54,000, which is really not too bad. Seriously. When you think of the cars it competes against.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll switch this in a second, but I just got done testing the Kia Niro, and I was just doing some like price research on it, and like it is crazy the amount of cars that are in that like 40, 50, 60 range. Like all of them are kind of in that 20K bracket, where like if you spend 10 grand more, you can get a much better EV for just like the little upgrade that is. Obviously wildly expensive still for some cars. Like it's crazy just talking about those kind of numbers, but I think there's a lot of options in that range. Once you get past that, that's when, I think these bigger vehicles are going to come into play, like more true luxury, I guess, kind of the direction they're headed.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree with you. And we could do a whole episode on like EV pricing. And I mean, I'm not a financial type of person at all. So, but yeah, things are not cheap like they used to be. Tyler and I talk about that all the time.
We're sounding old.
Right. I turned 31 and I'm ready for retirement.
Tell you what, the price of Hot Wheels is still $1 though. We can hang our hat on that.
Hot Wheels has defeated inflation.
That's right.
I think that and those like Arnold Palmer lemonade drinks. I don't know. Actually, I think they increased the prices of those.
Yeah, wasn't that a whole thing? Like, they're increasing pricing on some of those, and people are not happy about it.
Yeah, or it's like the dollar store going from $1 to $1.30. It's
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a tangent. So
not EV related.
So you recently got to test a pretty cool Kia vehicle.
Yeah, so I just got done testing the Kia Niro. I've been kind of scripting it, outlining it, getting my thoughts together for the full review, so stay tuned to my channel for that. And it was interesting. This is one of the first EVs that I had a chance to drive when it first came out, and then also the newest version. So that's how I'm going to kind of frame up the video. But back in 2019, so this is before I even bought my EV, I did a video on the Kia Niro because Mariah, who we've had on the show, got one with Drive Electric Columbus. So we had a chance to, or I had a chance to go check that out. And it's funny, you look at I was rewatching my old video and I was looking at the B-roll, and I had my old car parked next to it, like my Scion.
Oh, really?
Which is like wild to think about. It's been that long that I've been driving my EV. But anyway, they have like improved that car a ton. I know when I first drove it and first drove the original 2019 model, it was really nice, like just given the options on the market. But like it is a stark difference from the Kia Niro I just got finished driving. Like they've completely changed the interior. They've changed a lot of the features on there. The styling looks a lot better. Like I said, like Kia's just kind of iterated on this to make it a more attractive vehicle. So the one downside though, and I think I told you this in person, it's like it's not quite as nice as the EV6. It doesn't have that faster charging platform. It's just not quite there where I can be like, this is a great like primary EV. So not to spoil my review, but that's kind of what I'm going to talk about. But yeah, you'll have to. I don't want to give a ton away. So
hey, that's okay. Well, hey, if you can edit and get the video out before this episode goes out, then you won't spoil anything.
We'll see. Yeah, I do. I am going to edit this weekend, so it's possible I could have it out. We'll see.
We're talking in the future at this point,
right?
Yeah, I really like the new Nero, and it's kind of funny that you tied that in because I actually remember watching that video before you and I were even friends.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember, I mean, we've talked about this before, how, like, I remember I, like, made a list of, like, YouTubers I wanted to collaborate with, and this is before we even, like, knew each other, so I kind of felt, like, a bit stalkerish, but I really liked your videos, you know, back in the day and what you do now, but, yeah, it's funny because that was one of the first videos I watched of yours.
Oh, that's cool.
And, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool to, like, tie the past with the vehicle now, because it really, the new Nero is much better than that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you got a chance to. We actually saw each other this past weekend. I don't think we talked about that, but we got to spend a day together, not doing any content, just hanging out. And you got to ride in the Nero. So, I mean, it seemed fine from the back seat or the front seat, passenger seat, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, got the ventilated seats going on, like.
Right.
Yeah, I love the new Nero platform. You know, we got a chance to test or to review the plug-in hybrid back in, I think that was October.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And we loved it. I mean, the visibility, the amount of headroom you have, and just like how comfortable the seats are.
Right.
Kia's doing a really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the price point is pretty attractive because it starts at under 40 if you get like the original or like kind of the not torn down. I'm trying to think of the right word. Like the more, I don't know, simplified trim. It doesn't have all the fancy bells and whistles and stuff.
The base trim?
Yeah, base trim. I forget what they call it though.
The tear down.
Yeah, the tear down version. It's like missing a few doors and but it still drives. That's awful. I probably shouldn't say that about
I'm calling base model cars that from now on. The tear down
the torn down version. It's just missing a few features, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Just don't look at that side of it.
That's funny.
But yeah, they have like the wave and the wind trim, I believe. I forget which one is which, but the lower trim starts at under 40, which is a pretty good price. But then I was comparing like the cost of a base EV6 to a base Nero. And it's like I think, like I said, like a 10 grand difference. So I'm like, at that point, it's like you get 100 extra miles of range, you get incredibly fast charging. Like at that point, I feel like it's worth it to upgrade to an EV6. So I don't know. If your budget's really constrained, I think the Nero is a good one to look at. Great around town car, was very comfortable, like drove very smoothly, like it was solid. But I still think, like, money-wise, I think you can get a lot more by upgrading to the EV6. So
yeah. Kia really did a disservice by getting rid of that base EV6, the light trim. That was only like 41,000 or something like that.
And that might be why.
Yeah,
they were selling the Nero for around the same price.
Yeah. I mean, I absolutely understand. You know, you don't want to cannibalize like other models in your lineup, but like the nice thing is that Hyundai still offers the Ioniq 5 in that base trim. So, you know, if you are looking for something that's a little bit comparable, maybe look at the Ioniq 5, but then you still get the less range, say almost significantly less than the Nero. Yeah. But you get the faster charging. So you kind of get trade-offs.
Yeah. So, but I mean, overall, it was a nice car. I enjoyed driving it around. So,
yeah.
It's one of the few vehicles I've tested too with the charge port on the front, which is interesting. So,
yeah. I haven't tested anything with the charge port on the front.
Even like a Leaf or anything like that?
Oh, no. Yeah, no, we did have the Leaf. I forgot that's up front. Yeah, and actually we did drive a Kona electric too.
Right.
Actually, before we move on to the next topic, I need your opinion. What do you think of like charge ports on the front of the vehicle? Like directly in the center of the front?
I don't know, because like we'll talk about my charging experience with it. It was very nice for... Well, let me give some context, I guess. I am the kind of person that, like, now that I have backup cameras and all that stuff, I back into, like, every spot. I back in everywhere. I feel like there's a stigma around that, but
there is.
That's what I do.
I make fun of Tyler all the time.
But yeah, I back into the garage. I back into driveways. Like, I always back in everywhere. I just think it's better. We'll clip this for a short or something.
That'll be the post show.
Yeah, that's right. But I like backing in, so that part took some getting used to, because then I had to, like, at charging spots or in the garage, I had to pull in forward. It's like, when I'm backing into the garage, it's a lot easier to use the backup camera so I know how close I am to things. Am I going to clip the corner of the car? And, like, if you pull in forward, you're kind of blind going in that way. So that's probably the only part I didn't like. And, like, convenience-wise, it's directly in the center. So you're still kind of, like, pulling the cord. Like, most charging sites aren't set up to, you know, reach halfway across the vehicle or even, like, fully across the vehicle. So... depending on how you park and how the charging setup is, it's a little awkward kind of pulling it around that way. So
I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that. I always think from an accident standpoint, you know, like if you get into an accident, you're going to be damaging such a, like, an important part of the car.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder what part of I'm curious if there's any stats on that. What part of cars are most damaged? Like, do you think it's directly front and directly rear for, like, just fender benders? I feel like fender benders are probably the most common type of accident, so I'd imagine it's, like, front bumper, rear bumper. So.
Yeah. If anybody knows that data, I would love to see that, because I'm pretty sure that's exact. It's probably the front and the back.
Yeah, I'd imagine they're pretty similar. But yeah, for that reason, it's a good point. You probably don't want it directly in front, and then you can't charge or drive your car if you get in an accident.
Yeah, that's just, like, been always my, like, major concern with, like, a charge port in the front, or, like, Mercedes used to put it in their back bumper for, like, their plug-in hybrids.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel like in the back that would be worse, though, because I feel like you can control your car more than rear-ending somebody, whereas if somebody rear-ended you, you can't control that aspect.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I don't know. This isn't Crashing Electric, so...
Let's hope not. Cross our fingers we don't get
Sorry, I had to make that dad
joke. But yeah, I did do some charging with the Nero. Most of it was at home, actually. I wish I would have gotten to some more level 2 chargers to test out kind of how that front charge port worked. But it does have the hilarious charging started voice as well, which I think is great. I've got some mixed thoughts on that, but overall, I think it's a nice to have feature if you're somebody that, like, because you do, and you probably do the same thing when you plug in. You go look around, is my car actually charging? Like,
yeah.
If you have the vocal, like, hey, we're actually charging, I think that's kind of helpful. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, like, Audible and, like, having, like, other ways of seeing if your car's charging is really nice.
Right.
But just to hear it and then automatically know your car's charging, it's nice, because I don't think, does the Nero have any charge status lights? I can't remember if it's on the dashboard or, like, on the dashboard.
There's nothing exterior that I noticed. I wasn't looking too hard though, but I didn't see any kind of indicator light or anything like that. So I don't believe so.
Because I know, like, cars like the Jeep 4xe, they have, like, those 5 lights on the dash, and then, like, the Nissan Leaf has that too. So I was just curious.
Gotcha.
But
I did get to charge it a little bit. Took it fast charging. That was an interesting experience because it was freezing out. The charger I went to was not on the map, so it couldn't even precondition for when I went there. So that was an interesting visit. And I think I tweeted about this one too, because I wish they had ChargeWay labels on this site, and you were at it as well this past weekend. The one in Southeast Columbus, they have a EVgo site there, and it is only one of the stations there actually has labels on it to show you what output the charger is. So we actually saw another Nero plugged in?
It was.
At the site, charging on a 350 kilowatt station. So like a Green 7 station. When the car can only take a Green 5 or 100 kilowatts. So it was, kind of blocking that spot for cars that potentially might need that charging speed. So
yeah, that's how all EVgo setups are. Only the small Delta units have any type of label for power output.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah. So, like, for example, they just put brand new Signet units in Neros, and they don't have any power labels on it at all.
That's wild.
Yeah. So I might have to circle back and double check that claim, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't have any power output. So I always tell people, I'm like, ChargeWay labels would absolutely help, but, since those don't have them yet, It's like the taller ones are going to be the more powerful ones at that
Right.
location, but that's not how it is across the board.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, because there are 100 kilowatt stations that are just as big as that 350 station. So, like,
Yeah.
it's so hard
Or even
to tell.
50 kilowatt ones are as tall,
Yeah.
like some of the older ones.
So, like, it's not always bigger as faster sometimes. It's very frustrating. But
Yeah. Chargeway labels. Let's get them
that's
out
right.
there.
Yeah, let's get every charger labeled.
Yes. But so speaking of charging stations, this is our main topic of the evening.
25 minutes in, yeah. Yeah, I put out a tweet and a post on LinkedIn as well, just asking everyone's opinion on physical payment terminals at charging stations, meaning a physical kiosk like the gas experience where it's like, you insert your chip and do whatever to pay for your gas. So I'm curious to get your thoughts first, and then I'll share some of mine because I've got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna keep it simple since I like simple things, but like I think from a redundancy standpoint, it's important to have them,
Right.
but it has to work. And
Right.
it has to work, and I think that's one of the biggest hurdles when it comes to like station reliability. It's not the fact that the car or the charger can't charge your vehicle. It's just there's so many different behind the scenes handshakes going on, and to add a credit card reader that you swipe and then does all that back end, all that stuff. I'm not going to get into the details on that. It complicates things. But from my own personal experience, I've never once had a credit card reader at a charging station work. Even brand new charging stations, they just don't work.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because, if you're a driver that doesn't have a mobile app, how else are you going to start your charge session?
Right.
So that's just my opinion, as long as it works.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's interesting. You haven't had any work because I could see where that could go wrong, like just all the different ways that it could go wrong during communication. Because like the simple similarity is with the gas fueling experience, right? Which arguably is a lot simpler. Like you pull up, payment is always first, right? You punch your card in and it authorizes and like kind of unlocks the gas pump, if you will, to get it started. So there's not a ton of like fancy communication between the car and the vehicle, or the pump and the vehicle. Like there's none of that really going on. There's no handshake. There's like, it's literally just turning a pump on and off to move the gas into your car.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And with EV charging, that's where it's like, it gets complicated because some of them are like, no, before you do anything, plug in the vehicle so that we can like start that handshake process. So immediately it's different than gas. Like immediately it's like, oh, before you do anything, plug in the vehicle, which I think is very strange. Like I almost wish they could like, hold that payment method and then it's like, all right, now plug in, you're good to plug in now. And that's kind of a problem across the industry of like every charger is slightly different of like, do I plug in now? Do I plug in 10 seconds? Yeah. Like when do I actually plug in my car? Some of them are weird about like ChargePoint even like locks the connector to the station for their AC chargers. So
yeah,
it's all over the place.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I think payment terminals can really complicate things because people are like, okay, when in the charging process do I actually swipe my card? Is it like after I plug in? Is it, is it first? I don't know. So
yeah. I agree with you. Like when it comes to like how to like initialize a charge, it's so different across the board, and there's really no easy instructions. Even like like for example, like Electrify America, they always say like plug in first, but I've always had much better luck by starting the charge on my phone and then plugging in, and then like I've always had like almost 100% success rates with getting a charge started versus doing it like the method they're saying to start. And same. I mean, EV goes the exact opposite. Like, it's you plug in and then you get started. It's a lot. Yeah. But I don't know, like, I also think that, like, the nice benefit, too, about, like, having, like, a payment terminal is, like, if you have, like, an RFID card, you can just tap that if you have, like, a networked RFID card or if you just have, like, a chip in your phone or, whatever. I'm getting all, like, I'm getting all messed up here. But, I just think that, like, it makes it nice to have, but it just needs to work. And another thing to think about too, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, most of the charging stations don't exactly have like a main hub where you can go talk to an attendant to have like a backup plan where you'd be like, oh, pump 8, you know, like I need gas for pump 8, but you know, the chip or the card reader isn't working, whatever. And if you really think of it, those buildings are probably connected directly to an internet service provider via like, you know, some type of like direct cable, whereas you know, most charging stations are using cellular. So there's so many different behind the scenes things that can complicate things. But I don't know.
Yeah, and the I mean, I keep using the gas station, you know, comparison because that is really the experience we're trying to beat, and I think EVs have a huge opportunity to do that. But with gas stations, you're exactly right. Generally, the payment terminal does need to be internet connected so it can verify that payment method, do all that. And it's generally a hardwired Ethernet back to the main hub. They then, you know, like you said, have physical internet connection. And like with gas pumps too, if one of them's not working, you can probably go to another one. Like they have plenty of pumps generally at the gas stations. But yeah, with EV charging, like you said, it's a lot more difficult because it's not only expensive to implement and add credit card readers. It can add, you know, thousands of dollars sometimes to a charging site just to add credit card readers. Not only the equipment, but also the recurring cellular fees for that. Because I learned recently that when you have a internet connection on a charger, generally the connection for the credit card reader has to be separate. So you're not only paying for the connection for the charger, it's also the connection for the payment terminal.
Wow.
So, and that's just for, you know, compliance and like payment security stuff. Those need to be separate, you know, lines of communication. So that's then automatically doubling costs and recurring fees you've got to pay on a charger. So if I'm looking at it as a site host and I'm like, do I put payment terminals on the charger or not? It's like, no, like for all this, I'm already, you know, barely skimming by making money on charging. Why would I spend even more money to put a payment terminal on there where you have a QR code or an app or something like that? Like most drivers are now okay with that. But I think we're learning that, you know, we're past the early adopter stage. Like, newsflash, I guess. Like regular people that are just looking for a new car or buying EVs now, they're not putting up with this stuff. So like, I definitely, like you said, it just needs to work if it does have physical payment terminals there. So
yeah. I agree with you. You know, we are past like the early adopter phase, and I really think the industry needs to start realizing that.
Right. Like, people do not put up with stuff.
No, they really don't. And you know, and some people are very vocal about that. You know, there's going to be backlash. There's going to be people who give up on EVs completely because it's not the system they're used to.
Right.
And that's okay. I mean, that's something that obviously it's a hurdle that needs to overcome. But that's okay for the consumer to be like, well, this isn't for me at the moment. Hopefully it gets better. But I really think that like it's almost like that first impression. You know, you really have to make a good first impression to have somebody be comfortable with this long term.
Right.
Yeah. So it's actually funny you did mention like the two different internet connections, because when I was studying cybersecurity, that actually didn't even like cross my mind when it comes to payments. They are two different types of systems. So yeah, I think PCI. I think that's what it is. If I'm remembering is that right? Oh,
PCI
cool.
Compliance. Yep.
I remembered my studies.
Yep. Yeah, that's the big one. There's there's a lot of that gets complicated quickly when you start adding payment terminals, and that's one of the main reasons they have all the fees and extra expenses is because of just all the compliance that goes along with that. Or it's like, the easy version is like just integrate that stuff once, put it in an app, and then people use that to activate charging stations. Like from a network, you know, station owner, site owner experience and like just ease of use for them, like that's an easy business call for them generally, is not putting credit card readers out there. So I get the intention behind it. My personal view is like, I would love for those to be out there and, you know, work on all the chargers so people have that option. But to your point, I've tried to use those before and it like wouldn't work for whatever reason. But then I went in the app, clicked a few buttons, and it started in 10 seconds. So it's like, I don't know. The good thing is though, like EVs have the opportunity to have a superior experience than gas, where you don't have to touch anything to get the charge started, which you did with your Tesla this weekend with auto charge, right? So that's the direction the industry is headed, which is good.
Oh yeah, definitely. So my question for you, for somebody that works in the industry specifically on like the charging infrastructure side, do you see this trend of having payment terminals continuing, or do you see this kind of like almost like a wave, or just not existing much longer? Like, what are your thoughts on that from an industry perspective?
Yeah, my hope is that EV chargers get better integrated into convenience stores and like kind of fast fueling situations. That is my hope, that they get more integrated into that. Because then, they've already got their, I don't know what most people use. They have their POS system set up inside already, like it's set up. I hope that gets better integrated with EV charging, where EV charging is no longer this like tiny corner of the parking lot. It's now kind of more fully integrated with everything. And then they can just kind of mimic the gas experience and, have this option for people visiting. So that is my hope, especially for DCs, is like people can get comfortable, getting in an EV and charging. It's an imperfect example, but it's similar to how like early EVs would still have, and there's still the option on some EVs to have like a coast feature instead of like one pedal driving.
Oh yeah.
It's to mimic the gas experience. And there's definitely going to be a transitionary period here where we're mimicking gas fueling for a little bit for fast charging. So
yeah. Which I think is fine. I mean, you can't, it's like jumping into cold water. You kind of have to ease your way into it. Like, we know how society works.
Right.
Yeah. That was a good answer, because I'm on the same side. I really hope that we start seeing more hubs that kind of replicate like gas stations and just we'll get there. It'll take time.
Right.
But
yeah, that is my hope as well. I know we've done whole episodes on what we want an ideal fast charging stop to look like, and I think we'll get there eventually. It's just going to take 5 to 10 years, unfortunately.
Yes.
So
we'll get there. But I mean, fortunately, we already have people starting hubs like that, like Franklin's charging hubs in Arkansas, and
right.
And I got my eye on all those old garages across upper state New York. So
right. We'll have a living electric charging hub at some point.
Yes. Yeah.
Our podcast just play on a loop when you're filling up. We'll like pop up on those little screens.
Yeah, it's like have you ever been to a Speedway before?
Yeah. Yep.
So I hate Speedway gas stations because when you put the pump in, all of a sudden that advertisement starts blasting. Right. It's like, why? It always scares the crap out of me.
It's like, hey guys, welcome to Living Electric. Right. It's like mute.
The speaker's crackling because it's so loud.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully that's not the case. We will spare you all of that.
So if anybody wants to invest in that, let us know. We have a Patreon now. So
right.
Yeah. But actually, that's a good leeway into talking about our Patreon. So you'll have to remind me. It's just Living Electric Podcast, right? At Patreon?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So if you would like to join our tier, I think it's $3 a month. That helps us produce more content. And so we're looking forward to it. I think we actually did get one patron, so thank you so much for supporting us.
Oh, did we really?
Yeah, I saw the other day. I don't know the name, just because like I couldn't dig too much into it at the time.
Yeah.
But I do want to say thank you for whoever is supporting us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we major appreciate that. So,
and if you want to see any post shows, we post our post shows there. Little 5-10 minute tangent of anything.
That we don't get into during the show.
No. I feel like I'm much better at the outro. I think I should just do the outros moving forward.
That's fine with me, yeah.
I'm better at goodbyes than hellos. So, with that being said, do you have anything else you want to bring up?
I think I'm good. I said my piece.
Yeah. No, I like this episode. I think the more that we can talk about from like an industry standpoint, because I think most of our listeners work in the industry, so it's kind of cool to get some more conversation started about that. But I just think it's an industry that needs more transparency. So
right,
yeah. But anyways, we'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Yep. See you all later.